It's now time to learn about naming constants and variables. So let's jump right into this. Apple provides a bit of a guide here, and they show us some examples of what can be valid constant names and variable names. So we see here that they're giving us an example where we can use a symbol for pi. We don't have to write pi, we can actually use the symbol here. We see an example where we can use some lettering here. It's from another language. And we also see that we can use emojis here. And we see that in each one of these cases, this is completely valid. Now, I would caution you from a personal standpoint to only use this available ability to write constant names and variable names with emojis, with symbols, with foreign characters, only if you have a really specific and really good use case for it. Generally, I've found that it's best to stick with writing things in English and also just using camel case, writing things out like PI as opposed to using the symbol here. It's a big convenience thing. If I have to constantly jump back and find the symbols to do the autocomplete, that's a real pain. It's much quicker to simply just be typing these things out and also get the autocomplete. So from a personal standpoint, I'm not a big fan of this, but it is available, and I do want you to know that it exists, just in case you see it. More importantly, as we think about what good naming convention should be, and this kind of falls into an art of programming thing, I shouldn't need to look things up in Urban Dictionary or any other sort of lingo, right? And the reason I have a football game going on here is there's a ton of lingo that's used, with the team getting plays off. That's fine. That's great for your individual events, but it is incredibly important for your code to be able to be viewed by others. Be that someone that's going to review your code and give you feedback. Maybe you're going to share that with someone else who's going to help you write your code. Interacting with other programmers and developers is part of learning how to code. So it's pretty important that you learn how to write names that people are going to expect. You don't want to trick people with your variable or constant names. So down at the bottom here, and this is not an example of bad naming convention. This is a good example of naming convention here. Names should be descriptive. It should tell you what the variable or constant is, right? So in our previous example, we had the symbol for pi, and it was equal to 3.1415. Theoretically, I could have written anything I wanted to write there, right? I could have written FDSA. That would not be a good name because it doesn't tell me what the value is holding or what it's supposed to represent. So just keep that in your mind. Try to make your variables and constants names consistent. In this challenge, we want to practice integers and floating point numbers. So go ahead and just generate 3 integers and 3 doubles. Remember that numbers with decimals are doubles. And we want to use a mix of typed and non-typed declarations. So make sure that you add that :int and that :double. You don't always have to do that. Try to mix it up just so you're familiar and you can get comfortable with that syntax. So what happens when you try creating multiple floating point numbers as integers, right? So you want to do a little bit of conversion here, or specifically you're going to want to make them doubles. And then try creating integers as doubles, and then see what happens. And then just at the bottom here, we have a little bit of a reminder of what the syntax looks like with type annotations. Let's go ahead and generate a brand new playground so that we can start playing with comments. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new playground. And I'm going to call this comments. I'm going to make sure that the platform is set to iOS. I'm going to select next and create. So I'll go ahead and create my playground. I'm just going to go ahead and enlarge it, remove the first line of code here. So let's go ahead and create a variable to start. So we'll say var discount at department store, :double, and we'll set this equal to 0.3. Ooh, what is this double? Well, a double is just a number with a decimal, and we'll cover this later on. We can use the term double and float interchangeably. They're slightly different, but Swift is going to use double for almost all of our numbers with decimals unless we specify differently. But the real point here is we want to learn about comments. So let's say we set up this variable here. The variable doesn't matter. What does matter is our comments. So I'm going to say I will be using this later to track the discounts at this department store. It will change season. So what am I doing here? Well, I'm telling myself if I were to come back and look at this code in, say, 3 months, that I'm using this thing here. The reason it's set to 0.3, that's not completely random. I'm using it to track the discounts at the department store, which, is kind of stated here in the variable name, but I'm also adding this additional piece of information that it's going to change seasonally, so I can expect this variable to change in the future, which was kind of obvious in the fact that we used var, but this is really obvious with my comments. This is a good way you can use a comment to help you figure out what's going on here. I want to also show you how we can use multi-line comments here. So let's just start off. Let's say I wanted to add a few comments here. We'll take first line, second line, and we can say something like comments are especially good for reminders to ourselves. We might not remember what a particular bit of code does when we revisit it later. For example, warning, do not use the new syntax for animated transition or it will crash in iOS 7. So that's just like a couple of different comments we might write out to ourselves, right? Like first line and second line, probably not. And this one too is a bit superfluous, but this might give us some handy information about animated transition not being updated yet for iOS 9. But what we would want to do if we were writing all these comments out one after another is we'd want to use what we call a multi-line comment. So how do we create a multi-line comment? This is a better alternative here. We can do / asterisk, and then we'll do */. And whatever we write between these asterisks will be part of a comment. So we're going to see that it's going to turn green, which is a really handy way to know that this is turning into a comment. And we'll just write this out. So we can also use a / followed by an asterisk when we want to create more than one line of comments. We just need to make sure we close the comment or anything after will not get executed and will probably cause an error. To close the comment, just insert a asterisk, and I see I made a typo for my asterisk up here. I didn't hold down the shift key. So just insert an asterisk followed by a / when you want to end the comment. Okay, so we see this is a great way we can create a multi-line comment rather than constantly having to add these two / We can just do this once by adding our asterisk or our / asterisk and then our asterisk /. So the final thing we want to do when we're talking about comments is we want to talk about quick commenting. So let's go ahead and just create a few variables here. We're going to say var thing1, and we'll specify this is going to be a double. We'll say var thing2, and we'll make this a double too. And we'll say var thing3 : double. Now the code here doesn't matter at all. We just want to show you how to do quick commenting here. So the way you do quick commenting is you're going to highlight the lines of code you want to comment out, and you're going to hold down the command key and press /. It's going to go ahead and comment it out here. And then to uncomment it, all you have to do is highlight the same lines of code and hold down the command key and press / again. So this is really good when you want to test some code, you want to save it, you want to use it later, but you don't want it to evaluate right now. We know that commented code doesn't evaluate or won't affect our computer program. So all we have to do is once again hold down the command key / and once again undo it. Okay, so we have a challenge here, type annotations. We would like you to practice with type annotations by creating 3 different variables or constants, or a mixture of both, and specify their types. Also, if you're up for it, try different ways of creating variables and constants with, 2 lines or 1 line declaration. Figure out which method you like best. It's time to talk about comments. Comments are the one thing that every developer should add to their code, and many don't. So this can really help set your code apart from everyone else's, can really make your code professional, be more readable, and be more clear. Let's jump into this. According to Apple, use comments to include non-executable text in your code as a note or reminder to yourself. And this is actually a really good definition here. Basically, our our comments are non-executable, which means they have no effect on our computer program at all. We also see that they should be used as notes or reminders to yourself. So a note would say, okay, this is how this thing works. This is what I was trying to do with this. Maybe I need to come back to this and do some additional work. And reminders are really handy, even though it sounds like kind of similar. Reminders are really handy because code is often written and you understand the logic perfectly in the moment. But then when you come back to that code like 2, 3, 4 months down the road, it's really hard to remember what you were trying to do. So as a reminder is a really important part of the reason in which we write comments. So we see in the basic comment here, we just have these 2 /. We've actually seen this quite a few times. In fact, every time we generate a brand new playground, they've already included a comment for us. So we see that any text we write after these first 2 / have no effect on our computer program. So comments, what are they good for? Well, just taking a quote here, programs must be written for people to read and only incidentally for machines to execute. So this is from Structures and Interpretations of Computer Programs. So, what am I trying to get at here by using this quote? Well, programs should be first and foremost about making it easy for developers to understand what's going on, to continue to extend the computer program, to make it scalable so that you can continue to make it maintainable in the future. You don't want to write what's called spaghetti code where everything's just kind of like interlocking and it's not maintainable in the long run. So you want to write your computer programs as if they're going to be used for many, many years or, at least longer than duration of the immediate use of that computer program. You don't know when you're going to need that code again. And you might never use it again, but adding these comments is pretty quick and it definitely is really helpful. So it's really helpful for helping out teammates as well. I have that at the bottom here. And as you're working with other people, they can read your comments and figure out what you're trying to do with your code. And as we talked about, it's really helpful as time passes to remind you of what you were trying to do with your code.